telefone dela. Roll. Fairly standard, or fairly similar between the well, identical, frankly, between the Ferraris and the Mercedes. The Ferraris are getting straight into some slipstreaming again.
Yeah, it's the order of the day, really. Even in the wet, they were doing that, which is good use of a wet FP1, actually, to see the effect. There's the hard tyre on Charles Leclerc's car. Now, we didn't see the hard tyre at all last weekend in Belgium, and it's back. So we've got basically three options of tyre for now. In Belgium, it was basically the medium and the soft, the order of the day, and that was into the race as well. Ricardo, at the start of FP2, his lap right now is going to be meaningless for the rest of the weekend, but clearly they're so worried about a tow this weekend. Bottas is going to finish a lap tucked in behind the Toro Rosso of Daniel Kvyat. Yeah, and Kvyat goes third, and Bottas goes to the top a second and a half quicker. The tow is just critical this year, and Hamilton's already worried about it. I tell you what, when we get to Q3, it's going to be bedlam with everyone trying to find a slipstream on their way around.
Yeah, it's going to be very, very interesting to see what happens there. An hour and 26 minutes left on the clock. Meanwhile, Bottas is quickest on a 1:22.847. Sergio Perez back out on circuit in his racing point after they fixed that car between the two sessions after he hit the rear on the exit of Ascari. So that's been all put back together. Kevin Magnussen has not left the pits, and Norris has done an installation lap, and that's all. So I wonder if there's a bit of a trouble there for Lando Norris, because everybody else is carrying on out.
Point of interest, Hamilton went quickest without a tow. Hamilton top from Leclerc, Bottas and Vettel. Vettel nearly a second away. Leclerc and Hamilton very close, and Bottas 4 tenths adrift of his teammate in third. But no tow for Hamilton, and he's straight on with it. Of course, that is the meaningless first lap done. But got down to pace pretty quick.
Yep, he's on the medium compounded tyre, fractionally quicker than Leclerc on the hards, 3 tenths quicker than Bottas on the medium. Down here now is Kimi Räikkönen onto the brakes into Ascari, down to 5th gear, back on the power, flat through the rest of the sequence of corners, and now heading down towards the Parabolica, the big 180-degree sweeper. On the brakes at 50, down to 5th, back on the power, and then out over the start-finish line. That's where Räikkönen ended up in the barriers this morning, but no such trouble this time around, and he goes up into 10th place for the moment.
Such a wonderful corner, Parabolica.
Yeah.
Just Räikkönen there, diving out of a slipstream, moving to the left to brake and carrying huge speed into the corner, driving at 200 mile an hour on, and then little break down a couple of gears, and as soon as you can get on the throttle, because it's a huge straight on the exit that launches you to the start-finish line. And it used to be gravel, which was great on the exit there. You just go right around the outside, and now there's a bit of tarmac runoff, which is takes away a bit of the challenge.
Parabolic is a corner that that's a perfect example of why hasn't anyone made that corner like anywhere else on one of these new circuits, because it's flat. It's just a 180, you know? Eau Rouge is difficult to recreate. Paddock Hill Bend at Brands Hatch, difficult to recreate. Surely Parabolica or something, tricky is fairly straightforward to do.
Yeah, it depends what you're trying to achieve. It's a brilliant corner, but you don't see a lot of overtaking at Parabolica. No. And you need a lot of straight line into it, and you need a lot of straight line out of it as well to make the same effect.
So is it almost a weight? Would it be better if Parabolica was a hairpin for racing?
Well, it depends, because on this circuit, you've got a huge run out of it, so you don't need it to be a hairpin. Verstappen Albon, has gone straight over the first chicane on his latest lap. He's in 8th position right now. Yeah, if you've got a long straight off this, you're gonna start the straight at really high speed, and you'll just increase the slipstream effect. And it'll be better for overtaking having a fast corner onto it. But if you've got a shorter straight, then it's harder to follow through a fast corner, and you don't make up the time on the following straight.
And is it more fun because you're low downforce, maybe?
No, fine. If you want more downforce, you're going quicker. It's probably more fun, to be honest.
Still in the pits is Lando Norris. We mentioned that a moment ago. Claire Coppingham.
Yeah, they're doing quite a lot of work to the rear right of it. They do this really fun thing where they take off part of the bodywork and they actually put it in front of the car. They get someone to stand in front of it with the bodywork, so you can't actually see what's happening. So there's about 4 or 5 all underneath the car trying to see exactly what's wrong. So there is an issue. I can't tell you exactly what it is, but it's to the rear right, and they're all looking a bit puzzled.
Okay, well that's certainly not a standard plan for McLaren, evidently, because every other one of the 19 drivers is out on circuit. Verstappen goes third, quickest, 4 tenths away from Lewis Hamilton, who has improved his lap time, brought it down to a 1 minute 21.972. 3 tenths ahead of Vettel, a tenth ahead of who's a tenth ahead of Verstappen, who's then half a second between Hamilton and Leclerc in fourth. Bottas fifth. Sainz, Gasly, Albon, Hulkenberg, Kvyat the top 10. So good effort from Kvyat to be up there challenging the top 10. Ricciardo, Stroll, Grosjean, Perez, Giovinazzi, the top 15. Raikkonen, Magnussen, Kubica and Russell, the 19 drivers who have set the lap time. Albon's going to improve this time around. He's got a lovely slipstream as he comes over the line, and he goes into 6th place.
Got really out of shape through Ascari there. I don't know if he had to lift off the throttle, but he had a big twitch through the right part of it. Turn 9 as it is, 8, 9 and 10, the left, right, left of Ascari. Albon up into 6th though, within 3 tenths of Max Verstappen. Now, we didn't get a great comparison between the two last weekend. We might not get a great comparison this weekend because Verstappen we're expecting to start from the back of the grid. But this session we should at least get a dry compare. They'll be on a similar setup, and he did take a lot of praise last week, Albon. But again, Verstappen was out of the race as well, so we had no comparison there. So that'll be interesting once again to see that comparison. Also, Gasly and Kvyat, as you say, Kvyat on the edge of the top 10 in 10th. Gasly's actually up in 8th right now on the other Toro Rosso. So again, the comparison there is going to be interesting. Only their second weekend together as teammates in the Red Bull and Toro Rosso team. Sound you can hear is Daniel Ricciardo, 8th gear, underneath the bridge on the old banking, and this is Verstappen's radio.
Max, rain expected in around 15 to 20 minutes.
So rain expected in 15 to 20 minutes is the message to Verstappen. So I wonder if we'll see people trying to get their qualifying sim run out of the way before then.
Depends on the intensity of the rain as well. If it's a bit of a drizzle, there's still a long way to go afterwards. Do you want to rush through your entire plan and then use the best of your soft tyres for a bit of drizzle, that everyone else then takes the better of the track later on and runs a more conventional plan? Verstappen's doing well though, up in 3rd place, just 4 tenths away from Hamilton, who's still top, and he's only 1 tenth away from Vettel, who's in 2nd now as well. So it's Hamilton that's the quickest out of the blocks by a bit of a margin. Lando Norris still in the pit lane. His teammate Carlos Sainz has just let a couple of cars go through. Leclerc across the line to improve, but remain in 4th position, 4 tenths away from that aforementioned lap time from Lewis Hamilton. We don't know if that's second improvement time, whether he had a slipstream or not. He certainly didn't on his first run, but whether he did on his second run, don't know. As the cars come down towards the Parabolica once more, with an hour and 20 minutes left on the clock. Hulkenberg on the brakes in the Renault. He says there's no rush for him to find a seat for next year, which, I don't know, always strikes me as the, well, that's the kind of thing I think people say when they haven't got any options. But actually with Hulkenberg, I sort of believe it. It was Williams a few years ago that were like, there's no rush to decide our drivers. And then they ended up with Stroll and Sirotkin. It's like, well, you could have done with rushing, really. But Hulkenberg, it does feel like more opportunities are going to come into play as the season progresses. He's very employable for a midfield team. He's shown what he can do for a midfield team for nearly 10 years now in Formula One. So there are a couple of teams that have vacancies or potential vacancies at the end of the year. And I think for Hulkenberg, he's just got to keep driving as he did in Belgium, bring home some points and show what he can do. Because if you're thinking about signing someone to try and move up the order, he's one of the best drivers out there that's not confirmed in the top drive, really.
Andrew Benson in the media centre. Do you have some thoughts?
I have some knowledge, actually.
Oh, that's better. That's better than what we have.
Hulkenberg's options is very important. Here's Hamilton's radio.
Looks like there's a little bit of rain on the radar. Maybe 5 minutes' time will be only light.
Okay, so that's the answer we were looking at, was a bit of light rain coming in from sort of the Lesmo area of the circuit. But what's your knowledge?
Okay, so Hulkenberg's options, as far as I understand it, are mainly Haas and Alpha. Haas, I don't think are going to keep Grosjean. I think he's pretty much out of favour. And they're really keen on Hulkenberg. But if Alpha is an option, he might think that's better. Because obviously the question is which is he wants the most competitive car he can get. And you might be looking at Haas and thinking, well, they're a bit all over the place with their tyres, but how much of Haas being all over the place is the drivers, not mainly the tyres, and it's impossible to know. And then with Alpha, they've obviously, since the sort of midpoint of last season, they've come on really strong and looking like a very solid upper midfield runner. So, and it's a slightly more, a team with more longevity in Formula 1 that's been around for 30 odd years as Sauber, and there's question marks about Haas's future. He might think Alpha is a more stable place for him to go for the future, and he can probably think if he partners Kimi Räikkönen, he'll look pretty good and keep his name up for more years to come in the future.
Where would you go, Andrew?
That's a really difficult call. I think if both those seats are open, you'd be tempted by. I'd probably be tempted by Alpha, but Formula 1 drivers being Formula 1 drivers, he's probably going to look at the money as well. So I'm sure that will weigh into it because it's such a difficult choice.
Okay, yeah, I think I'd go Alpha as well, to be honest. Palmer?
Alpha. The trajectory now of that team is good, and it's polar opposite to Haas. Haas have got such a small team, they do a good job with their resources, but I think you look at Alpha, you think Hulkenberg and Räikkönen, that's a good team. Räikkönen's delivered a lot of points. Haas, I don't buy as the drivers that are all over the place. Sure, they both have their moments of semi-madness, but they also deliver great drives, but they're not able to do that now. These are two drivers that have been on the podium in Formula 1. They're not Sorokin and Stroll. Stroll's actually been on the podium as well, but you know what I mean. They're established drivers, and they're struggling like mad, at times fighting with the Williams this year. If you're Nico Hulkenberg, you're seeing that, and you're thinking, I'm coming from Renault to that. Are you serious? Alpha looks like a good option. I think they're comparable with Renault and McLaren. Räikkönen qualified a brilliant sixth in Belgium. That's a good midfield sixth.
You just never know what you're going to get, do you, weekend to weekend with Haas? It's real Jekyll and Haas. No? Everyone's shaking their heads. I thought that was alright. An hour and 15 minutes to go. Hamilton quickest, but it's 1 minute 29.9. Bottas has closed in a little to a 1 minute 22.0, so he's less than a tenth away from Hamilton. Hamilton returns to the pit lane now, and will get pushed back into the garage. Claire has news on Norris again.
Yeah, he's got out of the car now and taken his helmet off, and he's speaking to his engineer. So there looks like there must be a real problem going on there. A lot of shaking heads and not really sure what's happening. A different engineer has stepped into the car to try and work out exactly what's happening. So I don't know if it's a session over or that's a bit too extreme from me, but I'll keep trying to find out exactly what's up.
Yeah, it doesn't look strong for Norris, does it? He's, as you say, now standing over at the little centre console with all of the mechanics and engineers crouching around the rear right of the car, as Claire said, sort of 10 to 15 minutes ago. But there is a high level of inactivity at that McLaren for Lando Norris. There's still a few cars out on circuit. Hamilton's returned to the pits. Bottas is just coming through the final corner at Parabolica now, and does he return to the pits? Yes, he does. So everyone now will come back in. Leclerc's going out on the soft tyres, so they look like they're going quite early for a run. Albon, helmet-wise, appears to be back to his helmet from the Belgian Grand Prix a week ago, so maybe trialling that Arai from earlier, which was white with just a simple logo on it, but now he's gone back to the bell that he had last year, so last race. So perhaps they're just seeing whether it does make any difference at all. Because apparently Adrian Newey was not a bit frustrated with Verstappen's move to Schubert helmets last year, because the cars are all designed around an Arai lid. And when Verstappen moved to Schubert, apparently that caused a little bit of
Chaos. Tearing up the paperwork.
Yeah.
Well, they've got to design around a Schubert now, haven't they, for their number one driver? Maybe Albon should be trying on a Schubert instead. Who knows? Either way, I'm sure it's just a comfort thing, and Red Bull pushing towards Arai probably, but Albon saying, I'm alright with my Bell helmet then.
You ever raced in anyone else's helmet?
Nope. Who did famously? Coulthard ran Schumacher's. Monaco 95. Someone, I think Alex Rossi ran Rio Haryantos in a GP2 race or GP2 practice that I was in.
It was 96 apparently, not 95.
That had me worried.
So yeah, and Schumacher ended up in the wall. Have you ever lent your helmet to anyone else?
No. But generally, it's like rule 101: just turn up the race with your helmet.
Do you have to trust people with your helmet as well? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, are you fine with the team personnel like passing on? Because some people are quite superstitious about their helmets, right?
No, I'm fine with the team personnel carrying my helmet and doing what they want with it.
Okay, fine.
Yeah, that's quite all right. I trust them with my car. I think I'll trust them with the helmet as well. Giovinazzi and Leclerc are all flying laps on soft tyres. Giovinazzi jumps to 13th. Ricciardo jumps to 3rd in the Renault as well. What's Leclerc going to do?
Yeah, 9/10 of a second. Didn't have a great final sector, Charles Leclerc, but the first two sectors were very strong for the Monegasque racer. Oh no, it was the fastest final sector of anyone. I don't know why it came on the screen that it wasn't, but there we go. So Leclerc quickest, the second ahead of Hamilton. Bottas in second and third. We're getting a replay of Magnussen coming into the pit lane, and he's clipped the trolley.
Hit something.
Hit something right here in the pit box?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll look at it.
Not really very specific there, but yeah, hit a little trolley on the way in. Nothing too dramatic there for Kevin Magnussen. Vettel is out on the soft compounder tyre, and he is a 10th up on Leclerc after sector 1. And Leclerc, is he hanging around to give him a tow here?
Into Lesmo 1, Vettel brushing the gravel. Leclerc's absolutely not giving him a tow. He jumps out of the way in between the Lesmos. Vettel right up to the gravel, exiting the second chicane onto the green painted strip on the exit of Lesmo 2 as well. That used to be Astro back in the day, but now you can use it a bit more easily. What does he do through the middle sector? He's lost a little bit to Charles Leclerc, but there's only half a tenth in it as he comes into Ascari, and there's a slow-moving Alfa Romeo just in front of him. Is that going to cost Leclerc a bit of time? Sweeps around Daniel Ricciardo's Renault as well. It was Antonio Giovinazzi's Alfa that's just on an out lap, or a slow lap, that might have cost him a little bit in that final sector.
Here comes Vettel then across the line in the Ferrari, and he goes 2 tenths slower than Charles Leclerc. He was a 10th up in sector 1, but then he lost basically a 10th in sector 2 and a 10th in sector 3. So that's where the time slipped away. Well, 10th and a half in both of those to end up being 2 tenths of a second slower. The two Mercedes are still in the pit lane. We're just getting a replay of Vettel coming through the second chicane. I think he dipped a couple of wheels in the gravel on the way out. Not hugely.
No, he got away with that. Just the left rear. The rear slightly wider than the front. And the front was right up to the gravel as well. And the rear then just went through it. But he managed to just keep driving through it, basically, and didn't really lose a lot of time. It's only a short run as well, up to Lesmo 1. So I think he got away with that one pretty well.
Claire is in the pit lane still.
Still no move from Lando Norris yet. He's still standing talking to his engineers. But I did just feel a little few spots of rain coming down. I don't think this is the cloud they were talking about, but it's worth keeping an eye on.
Well, we've also got Simon Baker, who says there's drizzly rain in grandstand number 5, using the hashtag BBTF1. So he's sort of a little bit further down towards the first corner is Simon Baker, but he's saying there's a bit of drizzle there as well. So, in fact, I think grandstand 5 is right opposite the pit lane. So, yeah, bit of drizzle. But now Verstappen is pushing in his Red Bull, and he's going to come through the first sector in a moment. A 27.0 is the quickest first sector of anyone, set by Sebastian Vettel, and Verstappen's just over a tenth of a second away as he comes into the middle sector now.
First sector's 2 long straights in just the first chicane, so it's the simplest of the 3 sectors, much like it was in Belgium last time out as well, with just a hairpin of La Source. The middle sector then's got 3 corners, and the final sector's just got Ascari and Parabolica. They're really fairly short and simple sectors, just with a lot of straight lines in between. You can hit Verstappen on one of them right now with the DRS open, and he's lost another couple of tenths to Leclerc in the middle. Ascari's so quick now as well. He sweeps around Perez's racing point, and a Renault of Nico Hulkenberg as well on the run down to Parabolica. Ascari, you just turn it in to the left and then straight on the throttle as early as you can, because it basically just leads up to Parabolica. You ignore the left the right and then the final left. It's basically just one corner now for these guys.
Verstappen goes third, 3/10 away from Leclerc, so he didn't lose much time in the final sector either. Most of it went in the middle sector there for Max Verstappen. So Leclerc quickest, Vettel second, Verstappen third. The two Mercedes are still in the pits. Albon comes across the line, and he's about 0.7 of a second away from Verstappen on his run.
I wonder if Red Bull have got quite a trimmed car in terms of downforce. The fact that the middle sector was Verstappen's weakest, that's where there are more corners and where there's less straight, basically. You've got the second chicane straight into the first Lesmo, straight into the second Lesmo, and then a straight coming out with DRS down to Ascari. The first sector is long straights with one chicane, and then the final sector as well. It's quite a long run, surprisingly long run up to Parabolica, and then the drive to the line is still pretty long as well. So Verstappen potentially running a slightly trimmed Red Bull with the view to doing some overtaking on Sunday.
What are you thinking about between Ascari and Parabolica?
Finishing the lap.
But like, are you conscious, because it's such a long, are you consciously thinking about stuff? Or, you know, presumably at Singapore, it's just bam, 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 and you get no time to sort of take a breath almost.
Yeah, it's quite nice when you get to a Singapore or Monaco, these sort of circuits. You have no time to think, it's just instinctive the whole way. You have circuits like Belgium, where you got the bus stop, the final chicane as well. And here in Monza, you've got Parabolica, you've got so much time, and you've nailed the rest of the lap, and you can see the delta on your lap time, minus whatever it is, and you're thinking, here we go, this is the one. Don't mess it up at the final corner. It's really difficult, because you can't go conservative at the final corner. You'll lose too much time, and push too hard, lock a wheel, overdrive, you'll lose too much time as well. So there's somewhere you've got to sort of blank it out and just think how you're going to absolutely nail it.
Jackie Baker-Stubbs is down at turn 1 saying there's very light drizzle, and we've just seen a bit coming through Ascari as well for George Russell. Here comes Russell across the line. He's the closing on his teammate Robert Kubica, comes across the line, and he's quite a way away from Kubica, to be honest, by about 0.6 of a second at the moment is Russell. The Mercedes still in the pit, so they didn't feel it was important as the other folks to get out there and get a run in on those soft tyres, whereas the likes of Albon and the Verstappen and the two Ferraris have done. As Russell comes out now through Curva Grande, down towards the second chicane. Albon's improving, but his first sector is 0.4 away from Leclerc, 0.3 away from Max Verstappen. As Russell gets onto the brakes into the chicane.
Drops of rain on the visor is not really what you want as well, especially into some of these corners. They're actually fairly punishing. You can have a hefty hit into the wall at Ascari if the rain's coming down more, and Albon sweeps around Daniel Kvyat and Charles Leclerc. The rain is definitely coming down more, which is quite unnerving when you don't know if you're going to hit the brakes and lock up immediately. Albon's still driving up towards the final corner. Everyone else looks like they're backing off.
Yeah, I think Russell, felt like Russell had backed off. Or was it Kubica coming through there? Sorry, it was Kubica.
It was Albon I was interested in. He's on a personal best in the first and second sectors, and he does do a personal best over the line as well. Couple of tenths away from Verstappen, who's third, Albon fourth.
And Albon was 0.3 away from Verstappen in sector 1 alone. So to then maintain that through the next couple of sectors is decent. Claire, go ahead.
Is there more downforce on Albon's car? Potentially. Or maybe a slipstream for that first sector?
Who knows? Claire.
McLaren has said there is a small oil leak that they are fixing. However, they've just removed the floor of the car, and basically everyone is under it now, and the whole car is pretty much taken apart. So I don't know if it's a very small oil leak and they can't find where the leak is, but they've taken off a lot of the car to try and find it.
Okay, so that's why Lando Norris is still in the pit lane, and here's Alex Albon's radio.
Track is slippery, like rain.
Track is slippery like rain.
The engineer standing in the nice dry garage telling Alex Albon out on track that the track is slippery. Do you not think maybe he might know this before? But either way, Albon's completed. He completed a good lap there because he managed to just keep committed even though the rain was coming down. It does take a while. You get the spots on your visor and the track still feels bone dry because, of course, it's not wet enough yet to actually make the track slippery. And then at some point, you do just get a little layer of moisture on the surface, and suddenly you can find yourself locking up and having wild moments. But now, on a slow lap, he's completed that lap and he brings it back into the pit. So that's going to be, with Albon coming in, Raikkonen coming in, and Vettel coming in as well, everyone in the pit.
Okay, so we may have a little bit of a pause in proceedings here. The order is Leclerc quickest on a 1 minute 20.9, 2 tenths ahead of Vettel, 3 tenths ahead of Verstappen, 6 tenths ahead of Albon, 9 tenths ahead of Hamilton and Bottas, but they didn't do a lap on the soft compound of tyre. Gasly is 7th in the Toro Rosso, 8th best of the rest. Grosjean is 8th, 9th is Ricciardo, 10th is Kvyat, and then, but I don't think Ricciardo did a run on the soft tyres. Hulkenberg is in 11th place, Sainz in 12th, definitely didn't do a run on the soft tyres. Magnussen 13th, 14th for Raikkonen, 15th for Perez, 16th for Giovinazzi, 17th for Stroll. Again, neither racing point going on the softs. And then Kubica 6 tenths ahead of George Russell, and Lando Norris not setting a lap time because of an oil leak, say the team. So cars return to the pit lane, and yeah, time to wait for a moment until the rain subsides. The teams were saying that it's not going to be a particularly long spell of rain, just a bit of light rain for a short period of time, and Claire is down in the pit lane, in it.
Yeah, it's really not that bad. I know I'm the one that forgot to bring a rain jacket to Italy and specifically Monza, but however, even I can say this is not that bad rain, really. I think it's going to pass quite quickly. Interestingly, though, Fernando Alonso is now sitting on the pit wall, so looking at all of the important information that's coming in from the runs that they're doing. So I don't know why, I just found that quite fascinating. Is there a chance that maybe, and this is just coming from me, I've got no idea, that we could see Fernando Alonso back in a Formula One car? And that is just what I'm saying. That's nothing. Let's do a quick waiver on that one. I have no inside information. I just found it fascinating.
I would probably say no. Andrew Benson is probably gonna know more about it. But it is interesting seeing him. He's probably getting stuck in, Benson, isn't he? Sitting on the pit wall, having a little, or is he just looking busy again?
Well, I just spent literally before the start of the session, I spent about 20 minutes talking to him, so I can tell you exactly what he's doing here. He's here as part of his job as ambassador of McLaren, which means a load of time in the paddock club, which, as you'll both know, I'm sure he absolutely loves. Because we all know how much he loves public speaking.
So he's here under duress, essentially.
No, I wouldn't say that, because I think he's got other stuff. He's got other irons in the fire as well. He was very, very cagey about next year, because there's a whole load of rumours flying around about this, that, and the other, Vettel at Ferrari, and who's going to get second Red Bull and so on. But I don't think he's got a chance at either of those places, but he wouldn't talk about that. He was just kind of smiling and shrugging and saying we'll see a lot. But I had a long, long chat with him about Dakar, which it looks very like he's going to be doing.
Oh, wow.
It's not official yet. It's going to be, I think it'll be announced in a little while, but he's doing loads of testing in that Toyota pickup thing. And he's quite keen on trying to win that, although I didn't think it's very likely that he'll win that this year coming, because it's hard for him to read the desert in the same way that the other ones keep people who are more experienced. And he's obviously still got an eye on the Indy 500, and he was basically saying, imagine if I can win the 500 and Dakar, no one will, in the modern era, no one will probably be able to ever do that again. So I think that's his main aim, although I just think if he had a shot at a Ferrari or a Red Bull, he'd probably take it. But as I say, I don't think he has, but we'll have to let that one play a little bit.
So is he trying to invent the quadruple crown? Is that what we're saying?
He didn't use those words, but effectively, yes. I was like, come on, you're going to do Indy again? And he wasn't completely committed to saying yes, but he obviously wants to win it. And I said, surely you're going to do a deal with Penske for a fourth car. And he was like, well, that's the safe option, but it's not the only option. Yeah, so there you are. That's you filled in on Fernando Alonso.
Thank you very much. What do you make of those first runs we've seen there? Are you surprised Mercedes didn't try and get out on the softs?
Yeah, a little bit. That's not like them, is it, to miss that? Now we see all the umbrellas up. So they're very operationally slick normally, but maybe they thought that the shower would only be brief, and to be able to get a run in later, because I can't remember which driver or engineer was saying it, but it does just compromise the session a little bit if you go that early, because obviously you're missing out on all your setup work on run one if you compress it as much as Ferrari and Red Bull have done. Impressed by Alex Albon, he's less than 3/10 off Verstappen, continuing to do a very solid job, and there's that 2/10 gap between Leclerc and Vettel again, which is becoming a bit of a habit.
Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. Leclerc has out-qualified Vettel at the last 6 Grand Prix now, so it's very much becoming a pattern.
And we were talking earlier about when the drivers are in the cockpit looking at themselves on the TV.
Yeah,
that was great wisdom of you to know that it was 6 times in a row, but that just came up as a graphic on the screen, and Vettel would have seen that as well.
Well, it's drizzling a little bit again, so all the cars have returned to the pits, but we have had some dry running, and Charles Leclerc has gone quickest for Ferrari, 0.2 of a second ahead of Sebastian Vettel. Max Verstappen is third, Alex Albon is fourth. The 2 Mercedes are 5th and 6th. They didn't do a run on the soft compounded tyres, so we don't really know where Mercedes are at, and we may not know if this rain continues to intensify. Commentary continues on the BBC Sport website and app. By the way, I saw the graphic on the screen. That's why I knew it. I didn't actually.
Oh, really?
I didn't have that in my locker. But yeah, yeah, that's a harsh one, actually, isn't it? When they're filming you and then they stick up a graphic saying you're rubbish.
Yeah, you kind of know what everyone's talking about, and you're sat in your car like, oh, come on. Vettel has been out-qualified the last 6 races by Charles Leclerc. He doesn't need to see this in the middle of an FP2 session.
Absolutely not. A question for you: how do you react when Amandalia? How do you react when the engineer states the obvious over the radio? Like, were you like Starkey back, or were you just Starkey without pressing the radio button, or were you it just washed over you and you didn't mind? You did not react. If you're out there on track and your engineer goes, Joe, it's getting slippery out there, there's no way you're going, oh, thank you.
It would have, honestly, sometimes I just think you just say that just to just get on with it and just ignore. But also sometimes you might get a sarky response. If you're feeling a bit more chipper, you might give them a little bit of sark back. But otherwise you just be like, yeah, fine. Carry on with your day as if they've not said anything, basically. But there is, I'd say there's a fair amount of state the obvious stuff that you do get on the radio. I think the engineers feel that they need to tell the drivers this, even though the drivers are obviously out on track and they can see and feel that it is raining at times. But I think the engineers might feel. There was a story. Oh no, the story was me. It was. I remember. I was trying to recall who it was. Yeah, it was me. Did my first GP2 test with Arden at Silverstone, and we were in the old pit, and I think I was like in the top 10 at the time in my first test. Things were going well, and I was on a run, and I was on my last flying lap, and my number 1 mechanic held out the pit board, and it just said push on it. You know those random. It means nothing when as if you're not pushing for the previous 5 laps.
Yeah.
And it said push on it. I didn't even see the pit board. I was busy driving as quick as I could in a car that I was new to, pushing hard. Anyway, I happened to go off at Cops, and I was in the gravel. And the mechanic couldn't believe it. He's like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? I've made him bin it. And came in, he was white as a sheet. He's like, I'm so sorry, I don't know why I did that. I'm like, what did you do? And he basically thought because he'd put push on the pit board that I just tried that a little bit harder and just immediately gone off at the first corner. It's like that level of state the obvious that sometimes the mechanics and engineers think it's them, that they need to say these things, otherwise the driver's going to do something. We can do it all on our own.
We've got a red flag at the moment. Not really sure why, because it's not super rainy, so we'll keep an eye out on that one. But it got called about 15 minutes ago. They're just going to sweep the gravel from the outside of the second chicane. So while no one's out on circuit anyway, that's probably what they'll be up to. Andrew Benson, you have a story. Is it, you can't remember who it's about and it turns out to be about yourself?
No, it's about Charles Leclerc, actually, and radio transmissions. Do you remember after the race that he said, I didn't really talk much on the radio? Did you guys pick that up?
After
in Belgium?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he was talking about that yesterday, and people were saying, well, why didn't you speak to the team? Because he said, So he said, I've got no idea why I didn't speak. He said the engineers thought there was something wrong because he wasn't talking at all. But he just had nothing to say. They were giving him the information he needed, and that was it. And he was just focusing on winning, basically. But I just thought that was an interesting little insight into the sort of the focus. You know, just I don't need any more information. I don't need to distract myself. I don't need distractions with whatever. I'm just, everything's cool. I'm in control. I'll just get on with it.
Kimi Räikkönen and Essa. I can completely understand it, really. Especially when you're in the lead of the race. When you're further back, there's more things that are going on. And particularly once you've done your one and only pit stop in the race, there's not that much more to know or more information to need. You know what's going on. You've got Hamilton circa 5 seconds behind you. Just drive the remaining laps, look after the tyres. You've got 20 to go, and get on with it. I generally like to just get as much info as possible and then not really reply unless there was something I wanted to know particularly. But yeah, I can understand that from Leclerc. And when you're driving, you're so focused on next corner, next corner, next corner. It's monotonous that you're not thinking about too much more, particularly when the race is going smoothly, as it was for Leclerc last time out.
Where it resonated with me, you two, is that what I hear about Leclerc from inside Ferrari is that he has quite a different approach to Vettel in terms of his way he works with the team. Vettel's notorious almost for long debriefs, you know, really going into detail on everything, a bit like Nico Rosberg used to be with Mercedes. Whereas Leclerc is more of a sort of Hamilton-Alonso type approach, where he's very focused on the information that he knows will make a difference to whether he's quicker or not. And he's very engaged with that and wants to deal with that information first and foremost. Anything else that is fine but won't actually make a difference, he just lets the engineers get on with. So they have the economy of time that gives the team when they're dealing with him is much greater, and that can be a real bonus in two ways. One, it's less distracting for the engineers because it means they don't have to spend 5 hours, for example, like some of the Mercedes engineers did with Rosberg, doing analysis on past races on whatever factor it was that he'd got to be in his bonnet about on that particular weekend. And it also helps lessen the pressure. It's a very intense internal environment in Ferrari. And if you've got a driver constantly going, what about this, what about that, with engineers who are already feeling the pressure, that can just makes it even worse. Whereas if you've got a driver who feels, okay, this is the information I need, that's enough, now you just carry on. It allows them just to have that little bit of breathing space. Oh, I can have 5 minutes for a coffee or whatever, just to lessen, you know, the intensity of what, as Jolien will know, a Grand Prix weekend within a team is a very intense experience.
I don't think I really buy that. I can understand it is an intense experience, yep. But surely you want your engineers to go through all the data that may or may not be useful rather than nip off for a coffee. If they need a coffee, by all means have a coffee.
No. I'm not saying they don't go through all the data. I'm saying they're not getting extra pressure from him from stuff that he doesn't actually necessarily need to do to make the car go as fast as possible.
But how do you know what you need and what you don't need unless you do the research and you realise that actually, oh, that is interesting. If you don't look into it, you don't know what's interesting and what's not.
I'm just relaying what I've heard from people within Ferrari.
And there was a moment, I can't remember where, but Raikkonen and Vettel were being interviewed. In Parmesan, it was probably by me, but it wasn't. And they said, you know, what do you miss about each other as teammates? Or what's different now as teammates? And Raikkonen just said, shorter debriefs. Now that he's not with Vettel, shorter debriefs was his big takeaway. And obviously, he's a man who's going to want the smallest debrief ever. But, you know, I think it is true that Vettel is notorious for long debriefs.
I've been hearing... Yeah, go on, Andrew.
It's just to sum it up, I think what they're trying to get at is it's what they really want to know is what's going to make the car faster. The key information on that. You can get into the detail more on that, but it's the key overarching thing to focus. And if you remember from those pieces we did on Alonso at the end of last year, it's one of the things that Andrea Stella, the McLaren and ex-Ferrari engineer, was saying about him. Within the first 5 words of coming into the pits, he said 95% of what he wanted to say about the car. then they needed to get more information from it, so that's an extreme example. But it's the distillation of an economy of information that I think I'm talking about. Just making sure that everyone's focused in the right direction.
Yeah, I've had a lot of different drivers in debriefs in my time in Formula One, and the person that delivered the longest, most detailed debrief was Sergei Sirotkin. Really? And he was just doing an FP1. Sirotkin, we'd all sit down, and he's jumped into either mine or Hulkenberg's car or Magnussen even the year before to do a couple of laps because his car's broken down, and it'll be 10 minutes of how he's felt the shift lights, how he's felt, and you're just like, come on, man. We're all there like, no, this is not the good bit. At some point you can fill this in, but we want to know how the car can go quicker. And don't get me wrong, it was detailed and it was good stuff, and that's why the Renault team rated him, and they've got him back in the team now. But it was the longest debrief, and sometimes when things are going well, or Hulkenberg, for example, would just be quite clear on the debrief, just say, no, problem's oversteer, and we need to fix it to 6, turn 6. And then you can look into the finer detail in your own sort of pod of engineers. But yeah, there's different drivers have very different ways of working.
So what, do you have one big debrief and then like split up into groups?
Yeah, exactly. Then you have one big debrief with all the team, and normally people from the factory will be sort of video conferenced in. And then you sort of go into your splinter groups of your race engineer and your group of engineers. And it was in the entire race debrief that, Sirotkin would really get into the nitty gritty, and other drivers would be much less so. But different drivers have completely different wants and needs really from the engineer. I remember Kevin Magnussen. My second race I didn't do in Bahrain. It was one of my DNSs, and so I had Magnussen's radio on and I was just watching it, and he didn't say much apart from the next car ahead is this, or Fox this lap. There was nothing. And then there was a race a few later that Magnussen didn't finish or barely took part in, and I did. And he came in, I think it was actually Malaysia, much later in the year.
Yeah.
And I came in and finished. He said, wow, you have so much information on the radio. And basically he didn't want it. He just wanted to know the absolute what he needed to know and get on with it. But it's just different ways of working, really, that people like and don't like. That's interesting.
And does there become a competition about who's going to leave latest? Or when you split into your splinter groups, is it like, oh, I can't be
not
leaving
teammates with Kevin Magnussen, that's for sure.
Is he straight out of there?
He wasn't leaving latest sometimes, but it's not a competition. It's just, you do what you need to do to have a good performance, and if you're happy with everything, then there's no need to stay really late. It's just
but if you're leaving and Hulk's still in there, are you thinking like,
no, not at all. It's not office like mentality like that, really. It's just sometimes I would skip out and I'm happy with everything. There's not, you go through everything, you go through your laps, setup's all good, you're happy with your long run pace, off you go. There's no need to stay at the track and just pour through everything like Andrew was actually just saying, Rosberg style. But often you do want to find out, actually, why did I have that lock up in this turn? What do I need to do about that or this? And that means you're staying a little bit later. It depends on how you're getting on, really. Andrew?
Yeah, actually, there's a funny story about Ayrton Senna and Alain Prost on this front. When Senna joined McLaren, obviously it was the two big beasts of Formula One going against each other for the first time. And the funny aspect of it was that neither of them would leave the debrief first. So they'd be in there for hours thinking of new things to say because they were terrified that if one of them left the debrief, the other one would have been holding something back, some secret that was key to the car, because there was not anywhere near as much computer information involved back then that would have made a decisive difference, and they couldn't bear to walk out of the truck.
This also happens though, because you have your general team debrief where you talk about the general performance of the car, but then some things you do just want to hold back. So when it's you with your own race engineer, and you don't really necessarily want the other driver to know. If they find it, that's absolutely fine. You're not hiding it, but you're just not volunteering certain bits of information, and that's when you're then into your sort of splinter groups in the team.
Like what sort of thing are we? Like what? Can you give us an example? Like what kind of? Because it's not going to be like understeer at turn 5, or the car's understeering everywhere.
No, more little I guess smaller changes that you can make around the lap sometimes. Something you're doing with a diff setting or a front wing setting that's really helping you in a certain corner. It's really minute details. The general setup of the car is pretty much the same, and that's what you're doing in the debrief.
Yeah.
But certain things, if there's a fast corner and you're able to, you think, taking out a bit of a front wing or something there, that will be in the general debrief. But if there's something you can do with a bit of diff here or there, or a brake map or something, that's something you might just want in your pocket on your side of the garage.
It's wet. Too wet for these tyres? These turn 6s.
So you're saying turn 6 is too wet for these tyres. What's that? Is that one of the Lesmos?
Lesmo 1. That's under the tree slightly more as well. Magnussen then exiting turn 2 on a set of soft tyres, currently 13th.
Bottas has gone out on the medium compounded tyre. Magnussen out there, Sainz out there, Perez and Stroll. Just quickly, Simon Baker volunteers. His favourite piece of team radio stating the obvious. This was from 2006. Thiago Montero in the Midland team. It seems as though he's starting from the pit lane, and he said on the radio, "Can you give me some warning, please, okay?" And the team have said, "You should have some warning because you'll see about 21 cars go past the end of the pit lane, and then it'll be pretty much nearly your time to go." Claire Cottingham is drying up in the pit lane.
Hamilton's just come back in, but yeah, it is dry down here now, and that big black cloud that was over us has gone. So I don't know if that's what, I think it was Max Verstappen that was being told it was going to rain. I don't think we're going to see much more, but I said that beforehand, and then it rained, so clearly not great at the weather. But looks all right at the moment, and it's pretty dry down here.
Yeah, well, it seems to be only up at turn 6 that it's sketchy.
Yeah, too damp still. Magnussen not improving here. A big twitch as he hit the brakes for the second chicane, and then didn't push extremely hard through the Lesmos. Is he going to stay out? He does, and he's going to launch into another flying lap. And it looks still a little bit damp under the trees in the middle sector.
Obviously, it takes more time to dry when there's trees around, although it's not particularly sunny. It's still fairly overcast. Air temperature only 19 degrees, track temperature 25 degrees, so it's not going to be getting dry particularly quickly as Bottas goes out on the medium tyres and then returns to the pit lane in the Mercedes. Hamilton remains in the garage. So as you can hear now, Kimi Räikkönen again coming into the right-hander of the Parabolica, where he went off earlier on today in the slippery conditions. Comes out over the line and down the start-finish straight. And let's see what top speed he gets. He's up to 200 miles an hour before he even crosses the line. The sort of start line where pole position is. Hit 326, but I think he was on the brakes by then. So well over 200 miles an hour down at the first corner. Lance Stroll is setting a personal best. I don't think he or Sergio Perez in the Racing Point had done a lap on the soft compounded tyre. I think this is their first run on the soft, so that's why Stroll is improving at the moment, despite the tricky conditions out at the two Lesmo corners. Here comes Räikkönen towards Lesmo 1. You hear the wheel spin as he bounces over the curbs on the exit through the right-hander. And yeah, really backs off, doesn't he? In fact, there's still a little bit of drizzle coming down there too.
Yeah, it's the Lesmos that seem to be the trickiest area, particularly Lesmo 1. Ricciardo's gone out on soft tyres, so his lap to bit of a ninth was on the medium. That's a good lap from Ricciardo. He's gone out on the soft tyres now, and Nico Hulkenberg is out on track as well and appears to be on a set of medium tyres again. Stroll jumps to 15th, but he's still he's half a second away from the top 10 there, Lance Stroll on the soft tyres. So the track is nearly there. It's not. It's pretty drivable there.
Through the right-hander of the Parabolica again comes Räikkönen. No improvement for him this time around. Still the top 6, Leclerc, Vettel, Verstappen, Albon, Hamilton and Bottas all remaining in the pit lane. The same with Lando Norris is still in the pits at McLaren because they try and sort out that oil leak. And Kubica and Russell. Kubica was quicker than Russell in free practice 1 and is currently quicker by 6/10 in free practice 2 as well. And 6/10 is quite a healthy margin, so a good first day at the Italian Grand Prix for Robert Kubica. As Räikkönen continues out there. Basically, the top 6 are in the pits, the bottom 3 are in the pits. Everyone in the middle is out on the circuit. And except for Lando Norris is the only one of the sort of midfield runners that's all zipped up now in his raincoat as he watches the screens. Dano Kvyat Pierre Gasly coming through the Ascari chicane as he gets ready to start the lap in a couple of moments.
Norris is always amazingly calm and relaxed, and this is what I think he's been maybe the unluckiest driver of the year so far, and I think 5th place, retiring on the final lap last time out, when he was on course for his best ever Formula 1 finish, is pretty much the perfect illustration of that, on top of Canada, France, and Germany, a few others. He's had so much reliability woes, and he's always so chirpy. I know he had a very frustrated radio message at the end of Belgium, which is completely understandable, but then he goes to the media afterwards and he's relaxed, he's saying, you know, there's bigger fish to fry and the rest of it. He seems so confident in his own ability, he's under no pressure. He's secured a deal with McLaren for next year. They all really recognise his talent. But yeah, even now, he's out of the car. He's not done a flying lap in this session. FP1 was wet. He's massively on the back foot. He already starts from the back with an engine penalty as well this weekend. And smiling with his engineers, just watching him.
I know it's a bit early maybe to talk about this with Norris, but I can't really picture where his career is going to go. Not in a negative way, but I feel like Carlos Sainz, maybe. He's still a young guy, Sainz. But I feel like at the top of the best of the rest is maybe, I don't see him getting a big drive necessarily in the future, Sainz, whereas Norris, he's come in at this level, already straight in there, best of the rest, but no one's losing their mind sort of in the way that there was about Leclerc. Oh, he's going to go straight to Ferrari. Norris is going to go straight to Mercedes. You sort of don't get any of that.
He's more tied in with McLaren. Lando Norris, he's a McLaren young driver, got promoted with the team, extended his contract with the team for next year as well, before Silverstone. If I was the top team, any top team should be looking at Lando Norris very seriously, because for me, 13 races into his Formula 1 career, he's got all the makings of a champion. What he's not doing is getting great first laps, which he did in Belgium. He's had a couple of occasions now where he's looked better. Apart from that, he's looked very, very good, but had a lot of bad luck. The question is, there's only 3 teams that can fight for the title. Can McLaren get back to fighting for the title? Maybe 2021's their best hope. In the current guise of Formula 1, no, because they're not simply spending enough compared to the big 3. But the same as Sainz could end up in the top seat, in a way that Bottas ended up in the top seat. If there's a hole in one of the top teams, let's say Vettel decides to quit randomly, then who are you taking? Hulkenberg, Sainz, so you're looking at that sort of area, or Lando Norris if you can get him out of a McLaren deal. That for me is very early in his Formula 1 career. He's only 13 races in. He'll get himself into a top seat at some point. I mean, everyone must be looking at him and thinking he's very employable. 35 minutes left on the clock. The 2 Mercedes are doing a lap now on the soft compounded tyre. Bottas is getting a tow, but also perhaps some traffic as he comes and he's backed off now. So Bottas backs off. Hamilton comes past him in the Mercedes. Also out there, it was the Toro Rosso of Pierre Gasly that they were behind. Both Mercedes were 4 tenths pretty much away from Vettel's fastest first sector though. On the soft tyre, as Vettel was earlier on.
Hamilton's backed up as well.
Yeah, they're both backed up. And I think they're getting ready for a slipstream on the next lap. So they've got Kvyat flies around the outside on the run down to Parabolic, and then Grosjean's flying around as well. Then Hulkenberg, and then they've got a bit of clear air that they're going to try and slot into and make sure they can get a good lap in next time. The problem is, all those drivers I've just mentioned are on high fuel runs. They're going to be going about 5 seconds a lap slower, so they need to make sure they give themselves space.
Expecting rain again.
We are expecting drizzle all the way to the end of the session, so through the pit lane for another start.
Vettel being told that they're expecting drizzle all the way to the end of the session. And Claire, are we drizzling yet?
I won't call this drizzle. Like, it's got heavier, yes, I'll give it that. And actually the droplets that are coming down are quite, robust. But I still wouldn't... I mean, I'm not a driver and I haven't driven on the wet circuit, I'm sure, but I don't think it's that bad. It's hard to judge because it's right now standing here with no umbrella.
I'm glad you're sure you're not a driver.
No, well, I am a driver. I'm just not a Formula 1 driver. I know you were talking about the younger driver with the older driver doing better or worse. And just to say, Kubica is beating George Russell right now. So I don't know how many times you've said that this season, but interesting. Not really.
No, not very often this season at all, but he has been quicker than him in free practice 1 and 2 so far today. 32 minutes left on the clock. The Mercedes going again. This time, again, Bottas 4 tenths away. Hamilton has backed off, and actually Bottas was backed off in the middle sector as well. So this isn't going well for Mercedes, really, getting a soft run in. Take 3 now. Bottas launches out of parabolica. Hamilton is 4 or 5 seconds behind him, trying to get a toe. They're just desperate to get this toe working.
They're swapping around who's towing who as well, aren't they? Because Bottas was behind the last run.
Yep, and now Hamilton's behind, and this is the sound on board the Brit, heading down towards turn 1. Let's see how we can go this time. A couple of aborted attempts. Their brakes at 110 metres down the gears for the right-hander in turn 1. Quickly, the left flick of turn 2, and then a little bit of wheel spin out of turn 2 there. And on the run through Curva Grande, turn 3, 7th gear up to 8. And this is a better first sector for Hamilton. Still a couple of tenths away from Vettel, though, and he's a tenth up of Bottas. Okay, so big slide from Hamilton coming through the second part of the chicane, and kicks up a little bit of gravel on the exit. He'll keep pushing, might not have cost him a huge amount of time. Onto the brakes into the right-hander of the second Lesmo now. Bottas doing this without a slipstream. Hamilton, I suppose, doing it with a slipstream as they come down towards Ascari through the left flick. Bottas 4 tenths away. Hamilton only 2 tenths of a second away from from Charles Leclerc. So Hamilton has a chance of getting involved with the Ferraris here.
Bottas picking up a little bit of a slipstream down towards the final corner from Nico Hülkenberg. And he sweeps through parabolica then on the throttle. But what can Hamilton do behind then with the slipstream? Bottas comes through and goes up to 3rd. Fastest third sector of anyone. Hamilton goes up to 2nd, only half a tenth from Charles Leclerc. So Mercedes are looking much better now.
So the top 5 covered by 3 tenths of a second. Leclerc at 1 minute 20.9. Hamilton at 1 minute 21.0. Vettel at 21.1. Bottas at 21.3. Verstappen at 21.4.
Yeah, it's really quite a bit. I won't take big risks.
Sorry, Verstappen is on a 21.3 as well, only 3 thousandths slower than Valtteri Bottas, although the Red Bull laps, I would suggest, were set when maybe the track conditions were a little bit better. Leclerc saying it's raining now, I won't be taking big risks.
Red Bull laps and Ferrari laps then, because they were on the track at the same
time.
That's
true.
And Stephanie is raining still a little bit. This is the sound on board Hamilton through the second chicane, and he had a little twitch through the second apex, and then just forced him slightly wide, where he dropped his left rear into the gravel, exactly the same as we've seen many times. That red flag period we had, there was a lot of gravel on the exit of that second chicane, a huge amount being dragged up. I don't know if it was just from drivers dropping left rears into that gravel and gradually it got brought onto the track more and more, and then they stickled it onto the middle of the track. But there was a huge amount of gravel. We had about a 10-minute red flag period to clear it off.
Well, I think some cars have gone in there fairly heavily, like Kevin Magnussen. And I suppose if you kind of spread it all over, and then you keep driving over it, the actual sort of racing line bit is going to get cleaned up, I suppose, and the gravel will get pushed one way or the other, I would imagine.
But they are keeping driving over it, even though they've swept the middle of the track where it was. Hamilton's still back through it. There's just a lot of it, and now Hamilton's gone through it again, bringing a little bit more onto the track, and bit by bit there's gravel re-emerging onto that exit of turn 5. It is the second chicane.
So Leclerc is quickest, Hamilton 2nd, Vettel 3rd, Bottas 4th, Verstappen 5th, Albon 6th. Gasly is in 7th place. Albon is 6 tenths clear of Pierre Gasly. Grosjean is 8th, 9th is Ricciardo, 10th is Danica Fiat. Hülkenberg in 11th, Sainz in 12th, 13th is Magnussen, 14th is Raikkonen, and the 2 racing points of Stroll and Perez. Giovinazzi 17th, 18th for Kubica, 19th for Russell. They're still in the pits, actually, Kubica and Russell. Lando Norris still in the pit lane as well, having ended up with an oil leak. Leclerc out there on the soft tyres. He's on a long run at the moment, which means that it's going to be tricky, actually, to compare the Ferrari and the Mercedes lap times as well, because the Mercedes are back in the pits. They'll be fueled up and sent out again on heavy fuel. Here's Leclerc.
tells we believe Sunday could be this kind of condition, so there's value on keep running.
So Leclerc being told we believe Sunday could be these kind of conditions, so let's keep running. Try and learn something. As Max Verstappen emerges underneath the old banking and swings it into the Scary chicane as we are into the long runs. And Claire is at McLaren. Any progress?
No progress. And now Lando Norris has also got his team kit back on rather than his racing overalls. He's still got bottom half racing overalls, so he's still got his shoes on, but top half is now a rain jacket. And I just want to say 100% record for me of getting the weather wrong. It's now raining quite heavily in the pit lane. So whenever I say it's never going to rain, you can guarantee it's absolutely going to rain.
How does it smell?
It's quite different. It smells like rain. Actually, do you know what? It doesn't this time. It happens because it's been raining so much. It's not raining on dry, if you know what I mean. So it just smells like it did this morning.
Can you remember the word?
No, I think. So do you remember it?
No, I've got no idea.
You're good at that sort of stuff.
Do you remember it?
Nope.
My favourite thing there is Palmer's just been to answer the call of nature, so he's got no idea what we're talking about. But he still doesn't remember it. What I remember? The word for the smell of the rain. I feel like it was something like a cantia or something. It was a brilliant word. It was someone tweeted in that, didn't they? I don't remember who. No. Real shame. we haven't really. Petri. What was that? Sorry, the producer's talking in my ear. Petrichor. Okay. The earthy scent produced when rain falls. That was the source. There we go. That's how it smells. 26 minutes after the look, but it doesn't. That was the key point. Is that smell isn't present outside today. Long runs going on then. Hamilton and Bottas still in the pit lane. We've got Leclerc on the soft tyre. Vettel on the medium tyre. Roxy's just come in with Petrichor, so thank you very much for that, Roxy. 25.5 minutes left on the clock. As I say, Vettel on the mediums, Leclerc on the softs. Hamilton and Bottas still in the pits. Both Verstappen and Albon are running the soft compound of tyre. And only Hülkenberg and Sainz really, and the rest of the field are running the medium compound of tyre at the moment. Everybody else is doing their run on the softs. Might that be Petrichor? Not Petrichor? Petrichor? I think Petrichor as well. Now, when I read it like that, but it's just how the producer said it in my ear. Blaming him. 25 minutes left on the clock. So it's all got delayed then, because of that red flag and rain break. Both Ferraris are out there. In fact, most drivers are out there, apart from the Mercedes, who went out late because they didn't do their soft tyre run earlier on. So they're now, with 25 minutes to go, missing out on some long run data. That's been their strong point for the last couple of Grand Prix, where they nearly won in Belgium. They did win in Hungary on race pace. So currently, they're just missing out a little bit right now. I know it's only Friday, and they did their lap times in different track conditions, but they look a little closer to Ferrari than I was perhaps expecting. Yeah, agreed. No, it's only Friday, and they did their time in different track conditions, though, so it's very tough to gauge. Hamilton had a juicy slipstream as well from Bottas, a 3/10 up the road from his teammate. I still think the stats all point to Ferrari being quicker here, but that Hamilton lap time is good, and as Claire's been telling us, he is good around this track, so it's all to play for. Yeah, I'll tell you what, the Red Bull's quicker than I thought as well. Verstappen is pretty much matching pace with Bottas, only a 10.5 from Vettel. That's quicker than I was thinking that Red Bull might be as well, after a difficult Spa. And Gasly 7th, best of the rest, Kvyat 10th. So also looking fairly strong as well. Claire, last we heard Lando Norris had put a rain jacket on.
I've never seen a man change so quickly. That sounded wrong, and I'll just refrain from saying anything else than that. He's got his helmet on and put his suit back on. There's no tyres on the car at the moment, but it looks like there could be a bit of movement for Lando Norris. He might be able to get back out. I know we were talking about Fernando Alonso being here. There's another former F1 driver, Mika Häkkinen, is also in the back of the McLaren garage.
Lovely.
I think Norris only had to take off that coat and pull his overalls up over his shoulders, I suppose. Well, I don't think it was like a full-on Superman transformation, but Mika Häkkinen, 1998, 1999 world champion, still hangs around doing stuff with McLaren and Mercedes. We've got 22 minutes left on the clock. Famously crashed here, didn't he, at turn 1 in 2000, was it? I couldn't tell you. Was it turn 1? I thought it was the second chicane that he crashed at. 1999. And well, he did it in Italy as well, didn't he? Because then he went to have a little cry behind the bushes in private, and a helicopter cam saw him there, which is a real shame for him. The emotions of a Formula 1 driver.
Yeah.
Pure.
I won't ask you that. It's a bit harsh.
Whatever I cried.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is.
Ever.
I'm hard as nails.
But you had some shockers.
Do you ever cry after a bad commentary?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Actually, that's an interesting. I can't believe I'm actually having to seriously think about this, to be honest. But I don't.
What if you cried on the back of a bad commentary?
When I let myself down, I'm disappointed in myself. Yeah.
And you shed a tear. Not that there's anything wrong with shedding a tear, but
I don't think I have.
It's interesting.
I don't think I have. I usually just try and sort of forget about it and move on. And
you got to learn from it. You got to learn. You can't forget about what you did wrong. You got to learn.
But you learn from it,
and improve.
You learn from it in the days later. You don't learn from it that evening.
No,
that evening you
don't analyse the data.
No.
Yeah, agreed. I don't think generally I've seen drivers crying on the back of a bad result. Sebastian Bourdais was a famous one in Belgium when he thought he was going to get a podium in the last lap and then ended up about 6th or 7th because a load of drivers came through on better tyres when it rained. That was in 2008. And yeah, that was a fairly famous one as well.
I can't really remember. I mean, you had Massa, but that was sort of the weird, bittersweet thing. Brazil 08, wasn't it? He won the Grand Prix, but he lost the title.
Yeah, that was pure passion. That was fully understandable in front of his massive home crowd in Brazil, and he lost the title at the last corner. That was a brilliant moment in F1.
Movement at McLaren, Claire.
Yes, there is. Did you forget my name then?
Yep, nearly said Jenny.
Yeah, Lando's going out very shortly. They've just got the hand up to say stop, not ready just yet, but they're ready to bring the car down and he can head back out. Lost a lot of time. They had a small oil leak that apparently they had to take apart the whole car to find, but it's been put back together and he's heading out very shortly indeed. Have you ever cried though, either of you two, watching an F1 race?
I have, yeah. I don't know if you set me up for that one, Claire, because I don't know if I told you about it.
2001 Belgian Grand Prix, I was 11. When Luciano Curti had his crash at Blanchimont, I burst into tears and thought it was horrible, yeah. So that was not great.
Wow.
But then it was tape recorded though, so we just fast forwarded and it turned out he was fine. So, but well, not fine. I think he went to hospital and that sort of thing. But yeah, that's the only one I think.
I didn't set you up for that, Jack, by the way, because I cried when Jenson Button won his championship.
Yeah,
it was a tearful moment.
I just lost my mind at university halls. I went running around the university halls doing knee slides.
Okay, no, I didn't do that.
Oh,
I definitely didn't do that.
Murray Walker, when Damon Hill won his title in Suzuka, he had to stop because he had a lump in his throat.
Actually, I don't think I've ever cried on air. Oh, I actually got close this year. Genuinely, at Goodwood Festival of Speed, when Sir Jackie Stewart went up in his Tyrrell and his two sons, Paul and Mark, behind, and Dario Franchitti, they were all driving up, and then Jackie Stewart stopped halfway up the hill, and they pushed Helen, his wife, who has dementia, out in a wheelchair to the side of the car. So Jackie reached down into the cockpit, pulled out a white rose, handed it over to Helen, and then carried on his way. Yeah, so yeah, that me and Addison, David Addison's got two name checks there. I don't know if he deserve that, but yeah, we both choked up in the comms box on that one. That was beautiful moment. Beautiful moment.
Anyway, Mercedes are on track. Fast here in Monza in Formula One, and they're both on track. Hamilton on the medium tyres, Bottas on the soft tyres, and they've just done a couple of laps now, and we're not getting anything too meaningful just yet. Ferrari have done a slightly longer run already. As I said, they went earlier, and this is the sound of Lando Norris in the McLaren. Then coming down into turn one, soft tyres on his McLaren. 17.5 minutes to go, finally getting out there for a flying lap in the dry this weekend, and stopped it fairly neatly, but it should be on the cautious side for this first lap anyway.
Worth just quickly pointing out, we were only talking about sad drivers crying. There'll be lots of happy drivers crying. You know, you think of Senna and Barrichello, Germany 2000, and Adam Mitchell mentions Grosjean, third at the 2015 Belgian Grand Prix. So, you know, that sort of thing, but, you know, from sort of sadness after making an error. Here comes Norris then, through the first sector, and he's about 7 tenths away from Charles Leclerc. In the McLaren, his teammate Carlos Sainz has done a 1 minute 22.4, so that's Norris's sort of vague benchmark. 17 minutes left on the clock. Norris now 1.7 seconds down after the middle sector, so Norris isn't going to be near his teammate Carlos Sainz, but that's not a huge surprise as he comes down in towards the Parabolica. He's going to improve, but I don't think he'll expect
Conditions to be the best at the moment for this session.
Perez being told conditions are the best at the moment for this session as Norris went very wide at the Parabolica.
Slightly all four wheels off,